Hello everyone, it's Mrs. G, and this is my video on two-color loom knitting. Now you're either here because you saw the Facebook Live video and you're wondering why are there two videos, or you're here because you're wanting to learn about how can you do two-color loom knitting. Well, the easy answer is it's not that hard. I started loom knitting with two colors about a month ago. And I've been learning little by little. So for example, this is the first thing I knit. I had no idea how to control the yarn at all. And as you can see, I struggled until I finally realized I had to kind of ignore some of the instructions I was given and go with what felt right in terms of holding the yarn. You're gonna find that not everything I say is gonna work for your hands too. So find out what works best for your hands. On my second try at two-color loom knitting, I decided to do an A for my first name. And even then, you can see I was still not sure what to do with the yarn after doing it. However, I was able to keep the loose threads on one side. So you'll also notice that there's a lot of air, a lot of space between the two colors. That was very frustrating. I had to learn how not to do that. And then I decided to change up the medium I use. So here you can see I used cotton, and it didn't quite turn out perfectly, but I was able to try to do two different kinds of motif. And as you can see, it's a little sloppy on the back. But again, I'm learning, and just like you, I had to go forward in my learning process. And this is the latest swatch I've made. And this one I'm kind of proud of because I only had this one little thread hanging here that I need to weave in. And as you can see, it's a nice tight weave. Unlike the A, remember the letter A, it doesn't have those big holes between the two colors. And the snowflake pattern nicely goes into the chevron pattern up here. It changes very nicely. I really like it. So I am currently doing a snowflake pattern and switching to a checkerboard pattern. And I am going to try to make an entire panel. Okay everybody, let's get started with casting on. The first thing you're going to need is a loom. So as you can see, this loom here has a knob. That's going to be our starting point. So if you have a loom, this is step one. Now, some of you guys already know how to cast onto a loom because you know you have your yarn there with you. Good. If you've got your yarn, then you're halfway to getting this done. And last but not least, we're going to need our actual tool, because we're going to need this to actually remove the yarn up and over to do the knit stitch. So if you've got this, your loom tool, and your actual loom, and your actual yarn, you're ready to begin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a slip knot with the yarn. Now, find the end of the yarn. And some of you are going, wait a minute, this is supposed to be two-color knitting. Why are we just starting with one color? We're starting with one color because when you do two-color knitting, in every case, you want to have a beginning that is solid. You want to have either a rib stitch to start off with or just a straight stitch. Whatever you prefer, you want to make sure you start off with a single color. Now, because you're not going to start with like a design bleeding in. I mean, you could, but it would be kind of weird looking. But you know what? Now that I say it out loud, I want to try it. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a slip stitch and put it right here on this knob. So let's start with the slip stitch, or the slip knot, sorry. So like I showed you in the video that was live streamed, we're just going to bring our hands together and make a loop. Bring your hands together and you have a loop. And you notice how I brought my fingers together. Again, to make a loop, to get started, you bring it together, bring it together, you have a loop. Once you have a loop, take the longer end of that string, take it behind that loop, and cut it in half. Okay, let's try that one more time. Bring your hands together to make a loop. Then take the yarn and put it behind that loop. Take that yarn, bring it behind the loop. So, it looks like that from the side. It's like this from the front. Then you're going to bring that loop, that line up, that long piece of yarn through the middle of your circle and pull. And you've created a slip knot. So, take your slip knot, put it over your nub. Yep, the little nub there. Don't worry, you don't need to make a huge, long slip knot. In fact, if you think it's too long, like I think this is too long, you can start feeding it through. Start feeding it through the correct way, not the wrong way, like I'm kind of doing here. Okay, the other way. Right. Okay, feeding a slip knot. Yeah, first thing I need to learn, right, guys? Oh my gosh. Okay, pulling it through, adjusting it as needed. Because you don't need a lot of string there, because you're going to have to sew this into the piece that you're making. So you don't want to make it too long. So fully come through. There we go. All right, got a slip knot, put it on the nub. Bada boom, bada bing. Done. Then we're going to start with the E-wrap. And that is really simple. You just take the yarn and wrap it around. Wrap it around. Wrap it around. Wrap it. Take it to the back. Try that again. This is the first one. Move a little slip knot over. Take it to the first one. Take the yarn behind it. Wrap it around. Yarn behind it, wrap it around. Okay, let's try that again. Take the yarn behind that tooth there, wrap it around, bring it around, and do it again on the next one. Can you get faster at this? And you've already decided how many you're going to do. You can go all the way around and turn around again if you want, because again, we're making flat panels. If you want to make a hat, you would just go ahead and look at a loom knitting video on loom knitting to make hats. And they'll tell you to just go around the circle, then make your knit, then go around the circle again. I'm telling you to go around this as many stitches as you feel you need to do a flat panel, then reverse and come back again. So once you've done a line of these, hold the string with your other hand, push down your stitch. And you may not want to make this too tight because you're going to have to move this stitch. This is the first stitch you're going to be moving. So once you've got everything pushed down, like so, you're going to now reverse what you do. Now this is where I struggled in the live stream. And I kind of struggled with this as well, because what you're going to do to reverse it is you're going to bring that string over the front, and then you're going to wrap it around like that. So let me show you that one more time. You ended behind your last tooth. Now you're going to bring it back over the front of that tooth, and then you're going to start E-wrapping the rest. Back all the way across. So you have 2 rows of yarn on your teeth. See, I'm wrapping it towards the top here because it'll be a little easier to move. Now, if I didn't wrap this too tight, this won't be difficult to move. I'm going to take the bottom row over the top. So you can do it this direction, you can do it sideways, whatever your body likes to hold, however your body likes to hold this loom, that's how you should definitely do it. Again, we're just covering casting on now, and then we're going to switch to a different loom to talk about casting off, as well as intercolor, 2-loom color knitting here on the loom. So I like to start from the last thing I did, so I don't have to keep holding this yarn, because I have to keep holding this yarn so it doesn't get loose. So I'm going to start from this tooth here and take the bottom row here, and put it over the top. So watch how I do that. And I did make it a little bit too tight. If you make yours too tight, you know, you can always go back and try again, or you can just try to force it over. You know what? I'm going to try to undo it and try it again. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have to undo things. I'm going to do that again from the get-go because I made it too tight. I made a mistake. Why would I suffer unduly for silliness? I'm going to go just quickly wrap these like I showed you guys before. But this time I'm going to do it looser. I learned my lesson. And I'm going to push it down nice and loose. The reason you make it tight is because you're worried the whole time. Reversing on myself again. Reversing that. And then E-wrapping it. The reason you make it tight is because you're afraid of losing the stitch. You're afraid of losing the yarn. And it's like life. You just don't know what to do when you're faced with a stressful situation, so you overdo it. You hold on to things too tightly. And I held on to the yarn too tightly, and I couldn't actually move my stitch. And then after that, I had to take it apart. Now, one thing I can tell you right now is that if you are deep in, and you've been knitting for a while on the loom, and you find that you can't get the stitch over, do every other stitch instead of going straight across like I'm doing right now, and that'll give you a little more give and take. And then you won't tear your yarn like I've done when I was practicing for this. Yes, you don't want to tear your yarn in the middle of a garment. That will put a big old hole in the middle and force you to do some fancy footwork when it comes to adding things or patching things, etc. Yes, you can patch knitwork. It is possible, but it is not fun. And it is really difficult. Now, I just did a whole row without talking to you, but I'm going to show you one more time what I did. I'm going to E-wrap. Again, when you go back over a row, you start off by taking that yarn, going behind that first tooth, and then, just like that, you start it off back here. You're going to wrap it around like so, and then start E-wrapping like this. And I made it too tight. I can feel the tightness, folks. I can feel the tightness. Okay, looser this time. It's not death grip time. Death grip is only when you have to start with the two colors. So, take the bottom row over the top, 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 bottom row over the top. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you cast on. If you look at the back, you'll see you have a nice tight weave across the back here, and you look at it really carefully, it looks really good. So, what you're going to do is continue doing this for about 5 or 6 rows, and then you want to start adding your design. You don't want to start with a design too soon, or you might find that you're disheartened because you don't have a nice lead up to it. You don't want to have something that's too complex, too busy. You want to make a garment that is fitting and draws the eye without making people go, oh my gosh, what is that? So, casting on, step 1, complete. Okay, so now you're ready to add your second color. Remember, you need to get a few rows of that solid color that you're starting with, that you want your majority of your item to be. And again, like I said in my Facebook Live video, you want to make sure that you are using a sharp contrast in colors so you can tell the difference between the two of them. And you also want to make sure you have quite a couple of rows, at least 5, before you start adding color. And the reason for that is because when you're ready to add color, you're simply going to take your second color, make it into a little loop, literally take the yarn, make a loop, hold it with your finger. This is what I suggest. Again, I made this up on my own, trying to figure out how to combine two-color knitting with loom knitting. So you take this loop and you put it on the tooth. Now you want to make sure you're putting it on the tooth right over something that has the opposite color. Now, I'm going to show you how to knit from there. But the most important thing you should remember when you're adding your second color is to knit that as soon as possible so you don't have to have a death grip on it as you're knitting, because it is just a loop of yarn and it can slide off. So you want to hold it on there until you knit it over. Right now I am in the second row of this pattern right there, and I am trying to put that into this beautiful panel I'm making. So what you're going to see me do now is, as I told you before, when you're adding your loop of color, you are going to be switching back and forth. So I'm going to show you how to switch back and forth with your color. Now, I like to stick my hand in between the loom to get a good grip. Because I'm now doing the dark blue part of the pattern, I'm now going to switch over. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see. I'm now going to switch over. As you can see, I'm holding it with my hands, holding the yarn with my hands, and I'm going to start looping the colors. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see how the colors are, and I'm going to take the blue, wrap it around that white one, and then do my E-wrap. And once I've done that, I have to grab that blue yarn so it doesn't slide off, and with my other hand, grab the white and start wrapping these pegs as well. Now, what I like to do so I don't lose count or lose where I am is to immediately pull those colors over. And this is what that's going to look like. Okay. Now I'm going to pull that blue part of the checker over. Oh, it's getting loose. This is going to happen. Things are going to get loose. Don't get worried. You got to pull. Sometimes you got to move it around, make it work for you. Then, I'm actually going to move my camera down. Oh, okay. Then, it's a little easier for you to see this. A little more of a upward shot on me, which I'm not a big fan of. Yay! But then you can see a lot easier the stitch that we're trying to accomplish here. Take the bottom row and put it over the top while holding the white string in place. You may have to retighten it. That's okay. It's alrighty. And then shove it down. So you'll notice that it's like I have white beside each other, but I'm not going to freak out because I know that my next color is dark blue because I used two sharp contrasting colors. Remember not to pull your yarn too tight as you're doing this. Otherwise you will find that, especially going around the curve of this loom, you will pull the threads and you'll have like a bunched up area in your panel when you're done. So you don't want to do that. Make sure you give yourself a lot of space. It's okay if it's a little loose. When you're done with the panel, you can pull it and stretch it and flatten it out. Don't worry about how loose it is. Worry if it's too tight. Like as I'm going around this loop, I'm keeping my finger in this place so that when I start doing the white yarn on the other side of the loom, I don't end up with tight string pulled at this point. I don't want to have a tight bunched up place on this panel. So count 1, 2, 3 over, and it's time for the white. And I'm literally pulling with my finger on this white as I wrap it because I do not want to have tight strings or a bunched up area on my item. And one thing you'll notice is that my blue thread is trying to jump in there. Well, I have to pull the blue thread out, get it out of the way, and then continue wrapping with my white thread. And once I'm done once I'm done wrapping these in the white, then I can go back and grab that blue thread that was trying to get in the way. And I'm still trying to hold with one set of fingers. And again, it's going to take some practice, folks. Don't think you're going to get this overnight. Just take your time and slowly do this. You don't have to be Speed Racer. It's okay. Take your time, wrap it, Notice how the alternate color is there? That is how I'm doing my checkerboard pattern. I've already done a bunch of colors that you see in the bottom here, and that'll pop out in the back here. I think you might be able to see that, the checkerboard pattern there. I'm now doing the reverse of the checkerboard. But it does take time to learn, so don't freak out. It took me a month. It might take you 2 months. Don't worry, you might learn in a week. You might be a really fast learner. If you have some loom knitting experience, you might shoot through this so quickly that everyone thinks you're a loom knitting savant. And that's okay. But if you look here, this is what I was worried about. See that string there? It's too tight. It is too tight. So I have made a mistake. Let's see if we can fix it. So we're going to push, 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 pull, pull, pull. And this was the yarn that was here that is so tight. The last thing I knit in white. So I'm loosening it up by pulling slowly on the last one I pull the thread through, and then I'm pulling this one, pulling that one, and then using that to make sure I don't have any tight threads across this loop here. You do not want that. Just watch out for that, make sure it's nice and loose, and go forward. You can do this, just take your time. Okay everyone, let's start talking about binding off. As you can see, we have both colors here. The white is our accent and our design color, and the green is our majority color. Now, if you look on the back and you've noticed that the majority of your accent or design color is in the middle, you're simply going to snip this yarn, the long yarn that you have. Make that really clear. Sorry, I have some yarn stuck here. Yeah, there we go. The long yarn, you're going to snip that, and then using this wonderful little plastic needle that you have, you're going to sew that back into the piece that you've knit. You can also use this tool, which I didn't introduce to you before, but it is pretty helpful, and that'll let you pull it in and make it very nice and tight, and so that all these loose threads become a little less loose. Now, if you decide to do your design all the way to the edge, you're simply going to combine your yarn when you do this next bind off. So the binding off procedure on a loom is pretty simple, and there's lots of videos on YouTube that will show you how to bind off. I'm going to simply show you how to do a 2-color bind off so you get an idea. So the first thing you want to do is use your scissors. You're saying, where? What? Huh? Because in this case, I have enough space between my end of my knit here and my design. I'm going to just snip it and I'm going to sew it back in. So I'm going to take a couple inches off and cut it. And so I don't have to worry about combining these 2 colors at the end. All I have to do is bind off my green. So I'm going to bind off my green right now. So I always get this confused, but okay folks, let's talk about casting off. Now you've done your 2-color knitting on the loom so far. You've gotten your white and your green. Now, if you have, like I said in the beginning, had a nice lead in to your beginning for your 2-color loom knitting, then you'll hopefully have a nice lead off at the end. So you have a little bit of a break in the colors. Now, if you don't do your design all the way to the edge, again, you'll be able to cut the yarn and just sew it back into the design. And it'll look very smooth and no one will ever know the difference. But if you take it all the way to the edge, what you're going to have to do is take both colors and do the following bind off. So let's start with the bind off. Now the first thing you want to notice about the first stitch for the bind off is it's relatively simple. It'll look just like everything else you've ever done. 1 loop, 2 loops. So you're going to take that yarn from the back, wrap it around the front, and then wrap it around the second one. Now you may say, why are you doing 2 at the same time? Well, it's key to this bind off. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take that first tooth with the first yarn on it, and you're just going to take it off. Then you're going to take the second tooth, and then you're going to take it off. And right now you're thinking, okay, this is just like regular loom knitting. Why are you showing me this? Because this is where it gets interesting. Then you're going to take this tooth, because remember we're going to move from this nub, the beginning, over across the entire loom until we finish. Take this tooth and put it on top of that second tooth. And then you're going to take the bottom and put it over the top. Okay, then you're going to repeat the process. Again, wrap it around, just like so. The first tooth, you take it. I can divide the first tooth from the front. Oh, good. This is why I don't like acrylic, folks. I prefer to get cotton, tight threads. Take it over the top, bottom over the top. Same thing with this guy, bottom over the top. Move the first one on top of that tooth. Okay, it's fighting me. There we go. Take your bottom, this tooth, and put it over the top. Now, if you're not sure if you're doing it right, take a look at what you've done so far and see if it looks good. If it looks good to you, keep going. Again, tooth, wrap it up. And again, if you have two colors, you're going to do two colors of this. You know, let me try it this way. Let's see if I can do it faster if I do this. No, I should do it this way. Okay, yeah. Bottom row, top, switch that first tooth to the second one you did, and then take off that tooth, the bottom row. So, there's many different ways to bind off. The key is that you want to make sure, however you're binding off, it looks smooth and it looks complete. If you don't like this way of binding off, there are so many other ways to bind off that you can look up online. So please feel free to find the bind off that works for you. Some people are super fancy. Be super fancy. I'm just learning this, and I just want to make sure I don't have a loose thread. That's my key. I don't want this to fall apart when I'm done. That is my goal here. To not lose anything. So, as you can see, I'm taking my bottom row, putting it on top. And again, wrap the yarn, take the bottom row over the top, bottom row over the top, first tooth onto the second tooth. So hopefully this yellow and green yarn is really obvious to you so you can see how I'm doing it. And again, there are some really great videos out there that will show you how to bind off. And how can you tell you're binding off right? When you look at it and it looks smooth and you don't see any loose yarn and you're not going, okay, I'm losing my yarn, I'm losing my loom. If you don't feel like you're losing your yarn and your loom, you're doing it right. As long as it looks good to you. Experiment with it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that you find out that this isn't the way you want to bind off. Okay, find another way to bind off. Don't feel like you have to do it just this way. I'm just giving you a sample of how to bind off so you have an idea of what you need to do. And this is a really big loom for me. So, mistake and forgotten to wrap something, but I'm not going to worry about it because this is a swatch and I'm just trying to get this yarn off of here without damaging it. When you come to the end, go do the same thing as you did before. Get that yarn from the bottom over the top, and then take your long yarn, get your scissors out, cut it. And you're going to take, oops, I almost dropped my tool. You're going to take your tool and put it through the last tooth. Take it off the loom. Put the yarn onto that hook. You're going to pull it through that last tooth. Oh, almost lost it. Okay. Pull it through the last tooth, Woodland. Okay, I am having a struggle here. I do not want to lose this whole thing. Okay, pulling it through the last tooth. Some people are better at this than I am. I know you are. I'm proud of you for being awesome at things. I am learning. So, pull it through the last tooth. Come on, pulling it through the last tooth. I am fighting this thing tooth and nail. And the yarn is coming apart on me. Of course it is. Ah, oh, come on. You know, I'm going to put it back on the tooth and try to pull it through. I am not going to lose this. If in doubt, use the loom. So I'm putting it back on the tooth. I'm going to put my tool through the little hole there. And now, using the tooth, I'm going to pull it through. So let me show you how I did that again. So it seemed pretty successful, so I want to show that again. Putting this here, wrap the yarn around the tool, and then pulling it. Okay, now it doesn't want to work. Pulling it. I'm turning the tool here. Pulling it through the last. Yes, I think I might have to fight again. That's okay. Pull it through, and then take it off. It should be. So at this point, you take all your loose threads and you put them on your needle and you sew them through. So you may say, put them on the needle. And this is again where I would use my loom tool to pull the yarn through the needle. Butterfingers today. Oh my gosh. Never knit while sleepy, people. Okay, you can knit while sleepy. I'm just being silly. But you just want to pull that yarn through the needle and then sew it shut. See how the needle and the yarn are here? Sew it through until it's laying flat. Just keep sewing it in there. And as you can see, you can't see that yarn from this side. But if you want to tuck it in there, you can tuck it in there. Whatever it takes to let it get really flat. Once you've made a complete item, remember how I told you before, once you're done sewing on knitting on one side, you want to knit something plain and bland to cover up all these loose threads so that you have knit facing outward on both sides of your finished item so that you don't have a lot of loose threads. Okay, well that's binding off. everybody, that was Color Loom Knitting. I'm so glad you joined me on this video. I hope to have more videos coming soon on the different struggles that I go through as I try to figure out how to do all these different types of knitting. And I hope I can bring unique and fun videos to you as soon as possible. But this was a lot of work. I'm just going to be honest with you. This was a lot of work, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying it. If you like it, just hit the like button, and please subscribe to the Macmillan Memorial Library YouTube channel. Thank you so much for doing this with me, and I really appreciate all of your support. Have a great day. Mrs. G signing off. Bye-bye.